What you want when you have something like that is you want the light to be able to play on it.
Oh,
So that, that's one of the reasons that I like Gordon Batten.
Casey Gray here from The Conscious Builder. Welcome to episode 4 of the 3 Day Cottage. In this episode, Jane gets into Plan C as well as building orientation and location on the site. If you haven't already checked out episode 3, I highly recommend you check that out. Link is in the show notes below. It's important to watch that because in that episode we go through Plan A and Plan B, which she did back in March of 2020, and now we're getting into Plan C.
After we reviewed option A and option B, in essence, one of the major changes with option C was that there was a desire for them to have a little bit more space for the guests. And with that, what we did was take a lot of the concepts from A and B, put them into C, and actually we extended the loft over the kitchen area, which gave 2 full bedrooms, 1 private bunk room, and an extra totally overflow with guest couch space in an open loft. We had to reduce the bathroom area for that, but it did provide that space for having quite a few guests for Kim and Francois to cook for on a weekend. Plan C, on the main floor, put the master bedroom towards the northwest, gave more light in the area of the ensuite, and also kept the kitchen towards the south and directly adjacent to the door. We also moved the screened-in porch to the east, which gave a nice view out over the lake from the living space and the kitchen, and also a really good view of the screened-in porch. So with Plan C, we were happy to go ahead. That's where we did all the documentation for the permits, and Casey started to do the costing.
It took us about 6 months to get to a point where I could take the plans and put numbers to them. And just like every other project I've been on, the design comes in and the budget is not enough for what they want. And it's not something that they're not aware of because we usually talk about this throughout the design process. It's just hard to understand until you see all of the numbers broken down into section on paper. And we were about double what the budget was in the first steps of this project. And we had to go back to the drawing board to see what we could do to bring that down.
Yeah, sticker shock. So we were just sort of, moving along with the design and putting things together and working with Jane. And once we got the initial estimate from Casey, we're like, oh, we need to rethink this because this is way over our budget. And we had to make some big adjustments.
As clients, they were very good because they did realize that some of their demands and the things that they had started to add on had increased the budget. And they were also very good because they knew exactly what their budget was. And it was up to the team for us to get all together and actually make a plan that would meet their budget. Out of the discussion, we got to Plan D, which included the basement. It took out the garage and made just a workshop in the basement with an extra bedroom. The main floor, we reduced the square footage, tightened things up a bit, and actually included the mechanical room there. So Plan D, reduce the square footage, reduce the complexity. It kept things fairly minimal. For instance, in the loft there, we no longer had a bathroom. The bathroom was in the basement. The thought was that the workshop area could be used as bunk room, a place for people to sleep. Then we all went out to the site, and this is more towards the end of the summer of 2020. And when we were doing the excavation, we started to realize that the rocks on the site were not going to allow us to have a full basement.
Francois will miss the garage the most. We'll have to do that in time somehow. We'll figure it out. But yeah, he really wanted a garage, and I really wanted a workshop. So when we had to kind of pare everything down, the workshop was eliminated. And so, yes, I cried a few tears, not gonna lie.
After the demolition and when we were on site, we had a number of decisions to make. Because of the hill, if we put the house down lower, it's closer to the lake. But what that meant is that we had a hill right behind us on the south side, which would reduce the amount of light that they would be able to get into the house. The other option would be to build higher up on the hill. You get more sunlight, and you actually get what turned out to be a really wonderful view of the lake. So that's what we went for. But then we had the decision of exactly how to orient the house.
At one point, I think Francois had a brick. He had a little brick, and we were taking this brick and sort of moving it on the ground to sort of look at how we wanted the orientation to be.
We had to check with the solar panel supplier to make sure that if we tilted the house away from direct south, that we could then still get good orientation for energy from solar panels. So it took a while, but we ended up getting it so that we have the good orientation for both light, view, energy generation from solar panels.
A few days into the foundation, because of the steep incline that we ended up exposing in the rock, we realized that there was going to be room for at least a partial basement, a workshop for Kim. So Kim was super excited about this.
So once again, we went back to the drawing board, and because of the slope of the hill, we then had a small workshop which was not conditioned, unconnected from the main floor and the loft, and then a slab on grade for the west side of the main floor.
I'm grateful for that, for sure. It's also got a cement floor, so that's fantastic. And we do have some space now on the north part of the property where we were originally going to build. And since we've shifted the house back, we will probably try to find a way to build a garage in that area where the old structure used to be. It's on the plan. It's in the plan, but it'll take some time before we get to it.
It was pretty amazing to have this kind of change done fairly quickly, but we did have to move quickly.
Everybody loves surprises, right? Wrong, at least when it comes to construction. Surprises in construction typically are not these surprises that you want to get. However, in this case, we got a really nice surprise, and that was at the permitting stage. We got our permit in less than 24 hours, which is unheard of in Ottawa, where we typically build. We didn't even need a survey or a grading plan, and I think there was one red line on the plans when they gave them back to us.
So definitely a big learning experience for me, just the process and the stages of, what happens and in what order. There's a lot of information there that I didn't know before. I think the design process also was really interesting to me. I've never been, part of that process before.
The best projects are ones where you work on a team. And we went through the whole gamut. First and foremost, Kim and Francois couldn't ask for more fun clients to work with. But they weren't just fun. They're also very, well, they knew what their budget was. They knew what they wanted. They had a vision for where they wanted to go, but they were willing to work with myself and with Casey to modify it when they needed to. And that's a really great quality to have, because we all have our dreams, but we don't always get the full package.
The great thing about the integrated design process is that everybody understands how we got to the construction set of drawings. And people, I find, often forget how much work it takes to get from nothing, a blank canvas, to a point where we can actually start construction. In this case, we had, I believe, about 9 iterations before we finally came to a design that worked for what they wanted and what fit within the budget that they wanted to spend.
I wish more people would take such an active role in the creation of their own home. You know, home is a very personal thing, and particularly when we want to live in a home for a long time. We bought that special property. We put a lot of thought, heart, soul, and a good chunk of money into it. It's great for me, when the clients really fully participate in it. I cannot wait to see what they do with the interior of the house. I think it's going to be beautiful, amusing, interesting. I'm really looking forward to the completion of it.
Glad you tuned in for episode 4 of the 3 Day Cottage. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell button so that you get notifications when episode 5 gets released. In episode 5, we'll be talking about foundation and framing.